Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with your favourite show of the week, Talking Tactics. This time talking about Aston Villa actually making it to the fifth round of the FA Cup. I have to keep saying that because we've actually made the fifth round of the FA Cup after beating Tottenham Hotspur 2-1 on Sunday. And here to go through all the analysis is our favourite football data expert, Gareth. How you doing, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, mate. Yeah, all good. Yeah. Nice to get through. Not the easiest, one might say, but I mean, we got it done through to the fifth round. No complaints.
Absolutely, and I think just generally, it was really, really sort of, I guess, purposeful, attacking, performance from a number of players. It was good, I guess, swashbuckling in some ways. If I was thinking about how a journalist might report on it, I think swashbuckling would have been the word to be used. But it maybe should and could have been a bit more comfortable than it ultimately was in the end. Like, I wish we'd have won 3 or 4-1.
Yeah, I mean, we had chances to make it more, didn't we? Again, but we just didn't. But it was, I think, he freshened it up a little bit. You're leaving Watkins out, which was interesting to see. And Bailey come a little bit to a almost like players were playing for their positions almost. So yeah, it was good to see that. I think purposeful would be the word I would probably use.
Yeah, it was good. Some players like John McGinn sort of back get seen a bit more fresher with a bit between his teeth. And we've talked about, Villa playing well when John McGinn plays well. And there's still kind of that element where he does set the tempo, sets the example in a number of, particularly at home, I think, for Aston Villa. And that did play out. But yeah, like you say, Marlon looked quite sharp. Leon Bailey, now he had more options around him, which took players away, which gave him a bit more space. Garcia looked good at right back. And there was, Tottenham made it very easy for us in certain situations, in terms of the space that they allowed us. But, it was good to see players like that making their debuts or coming back to a bit of form. And then Ramsey and Rogers and one or two others really showing what they can do as well.
Yeah, and we spoke about the Wolves game and games previous to that, I think, where we said lately most players have been in 6.5 at best. We can say against Tottenham that most of them were 8.5 at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So let's get into it. The tail of the tape in terms of the stats. Anything that stands out to you here, mate, in terms of looking at the general story of the game?
I mean, I think we could say it's probably pretty much even Stevens stat wise. Looks at all these. One thing that did catch my eye, especially here, was the average goal kick length. Look at us playing long for a great deal of the game. 47 meters is a fair way to play long, and you're looking at a little bit shorter, sort of 25 for Tottenham. So that caught my eye a little bit more than anything.
Yeah, and we made quite a few clearances, 22 clearances as well. I'm not sure whether that was more towards the back end of the game. Maybe Tottenham threw a little bit more at us. I don't know, but that's interesting. But we certainly looked threatening in when we could get moving and when we could get going. Even in that second half, 1 or 2 quick passes and we were straight through. So we're certainly playing for moments where we could really exploit space.
Yeah, definitely. And we talked about it on the group as well, and we've talked about it on this pod. When we play central from back to front and quickly into Rogers, that's where most of our success comes from. And that's where we got success from in the early Emery days. And we kind of regressed from it. We've talked about it quite a bit on it. We went back to that and we looked so much more comfortable in possession, just playing through the lines quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just look at the passing networks then. Looking at this, what did you spot here? What is this telling us?
I think big left-sided bias we can see again, can't we? Before look at obviously, it was that sort of game where we focused more on that left-hand side, whereas Tottenham you can see not really in sort of majority in attacking areas, and Tottenham changed it a lot because they decided that we'll see it on the sonars, really congested on their right-hand side, and he took Mikey Moore off, didn't he? Eventually,
yeah.
And so it was. I think he was getting in Kulusevski's way and Pedro Porro's way on that right hand side. So that was quite interesting to see.
Yeah, well, let's just do the Tottenham one first, then, as you wanted to highlight that. I mean, yeah, you can see what's that more
Kulusevski and Pedro Porro,
yeah, really highlighted in that one area.
Yeah, it was just too congested. And you could actually see this playing. And when I plotted this, you can actually see, when you look back, you can actually see that being played out on the pitch. There was a lot of congestion on that right-hand side, and they weren't sort of getting anywhere with it. So I'm not surprised, really, that he took Mikey Moore off and he changed it at half-time.
Yeah. And the Villa one, anything you notice in here? Danya Marlon, nice and high up there. Anything else to look at?
Exactly that. Nice and high. Nice to see Morgan Rogers and Jacob Ramsey in those half spaces. But look at Morgan Rogers being closer to Bailey, and you're letting those central midfielders just sit there a little bit. We've plotted this so that obviously Bogard is on because of the early Conser injury. But you can see a lot of passes that are sort of high frequency that are actually going forwards in different directions, but they're actually going forwards, especially in those central midfield and attacking areas.
Yeah, really good, really good. The XG, the shot map, seemed like we had loads of shots. I mean, 16 there, 7 on target, 4 big chances and 3 big chances missed. So it does indicate that, Tottenham missed a couple of big chances as well, but it does indicate that we probably could and should have been 2 or 3-0 up at half time, and then maybe even gone on to score a couple more in the second half.
Yeah, and this is what we've sort of asked for, haven't we? Be a bit more clinical. All right, you can say 4 big chances there, but the XG is only 2.06, so we've exceeded that. We've done okay there. But yeah, I mean, you've got the 4 big chances and you've got 3 missed. Again, we just need to be that little bit better, I think. But we were more clinical on average, I would say.
Yeah, there was one particular where Ramsey went for the one-on-one where he probably could and should have maybe squared it for Asensio. I'm always loath to have a go at players for shooting because I don't, if you're the opportunity to score, go for it yourself. Don't try and tee up someone else. But maybe in that occasion, he probably did. Especially if he'd missed a couple of one-on-ones, you're probably thinking, right, give it to someone else to make sure of the win.
Yeah, for me, he's got to square it. I mean, I must admit, I thought at the time I was crying to the team, just square the ball. But like you say, I agree with you to an extent. He's an attacking player. He's always going to try and take the shot.
Exactly. Momentum of the game. I think Villa, like you say, were in pretty much control of it. Tottenham had a spell towards the end there, but I guess a pretty solid, good performance across the period of the whole game, really.
Yeah, and interesting to see if you can see like the higher expected threat periods after both of the goals, which is interesting to see. So we'll keep an eye on that moving forward. But yeah, creating 1.27 is decent, on average, and we can see we're in the pluses. So yeah, it's just a shame that sort of Tottenham had that little bit towards the end to make us that little bit more nervy, but it was okay in the end, obviously.
Yeah, and I'm quite intrigued by that. If you're saying if that trend does continue, after we score a goal, if we do go after the next one, because that's what I've always out of the corner of my mouth sort of admired about Newcastle. When they're flying, they score the one goal, then they get another, then they get another, and then they kind of just blow teams away, particularly at home. And that's what I want to see Villa, almost going back to, because there were times, particularly last season and the season before, the second half of that season when Emery first came in, where we were kind of blowing teams away in that first 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's a very similar sort of style. The only difference is that we tend to play through the lines more quickly, whereas Newcastle sort of go from back out to Gordon and out to Isaac on the flanks.
Yeah.
But it's a very similar pattern, I agree.
Yeah. Turnovers. You wanted to sort of highlight this. Anything that what did you basically notice about this one?
Yeah, I just think 7 high turnovers from Tottenham is quite high. That's it did worry me a little bit when we're seeing these sort of creeping into matches a little bit more. We're being pressed and we're being turned over quite high. But again, we've managed to do 3 ourselves. Yeah, just a little bit one. I mean, Tottenham didn't get any shots off of theirs, obviously, but it was just that little bit sort of nervy at times in that aspect.
Yeah, that one. I do like them taking the ball under pressure. I do worry sometimes about Ramsey taking the ball with his back to goal. I think his body position needs to be better when he's receiving the ball. Like we saw that against Wolves, he really struggled. And if there's a player who's like stronger than him and tougher than him, I think sometimes that can be a real area of his game that he needs to strengthen. Don't get me wrong, I admire them taking the ball under pressure because if they do get the turn, then they've got the space to run into, and that's what they're brilliant at, Rogers and Ramsey. I just want him to maybe have his body to the side a bit more so that the gap between him and the ball and the defender's bigger. He's receiving the ball flat.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. I think maybe, like we've said, he's just coming into that little bit more of fitness, isn't he? So when maybe that will come in games to come.
Yeah. But yeah, it was one to watch, I think.
Yeah.
Then in terms of this, the expected threat from carries, big slide here with every player plotted. Just pick out some things that you maybe noticed here. I mean, Asensio right at the top there. Ramsey again, doing really well, and Bailey.
Yeah, again, these Ramsey, Bailey and Rogers, we're seeing up the top of these charts in our games, even if we're winning or losing, especially from carries. And it was quite interesting to see Asensio up there. Obviously, he come on as a substitute. But, we just mentioned Ramsey, didn't we? Funny enough about not being sort of turning. But this proves that when he is doing it, he's creating expected threat for him. So again, as I say, if it progresses more, we should see more from him. But yeah, to see those attacking players creating it from ball carrying, especially as we know they're good at that.
And then the ball progression, top 10 ball progressors. So Rogers there right at the top had a very, very good game. 9 progressive passes and then 4 progressive carries. That's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. I mean, especially on one player I sort of noticed there was 6 from Boubacar Kamara as well from centre half, which is a little bit easier because you're playing from the back, so you do generally try to play forward. But yeah, 9 progressive passes from Rogers and 4 progressive carries is a very good return.
Yeah, and then like you say, numbers there for Bailey, 2 progressive passes, 5 progressive carries, 1 through pass. McGinn there with 5 progressive passes, 1 through pass, 3 progressive carries. So we're certainly making those penetrating runs, penetrating passes. It's just, can we get the finish on the end?
Yeah, and this is where the XT comes in. So we can create enough XT from passes and carries. We've seen it in multiple slides, haven't we? In this show, can we create into chances? You're exactly right.
Yeah. Then the shot sequence involvement. Just talk to us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, just players who are the sequence that they are involved in a shot sequence, and that's broken down into an actual shot, a shot assist, or a build up to a shot. And again, we can see Rogers right up there, and also 5 shots from Jacob involved in 5 shots. That's incredible.
Yeah, definitely. And then the actual expected threat, Kulusevski at the top there, Porro second, and then Bailey and Asensio, like we mentioned there, after coming on as sub. So, pretty consistent there. Bailey, Asensio, Rogers, Ramsey, just kind of proving our point in terms of them being, the consistent ones for Villa.
Exactly, and from ball carrying as well. Again, so this is like the 4th slide we've seen of the same thing. Yeah. So obviously Kulusevski from passes, which I haven't plotted this time. But yeah, apart from that, you'd expect to see people like Kulusevski and Porro. They are incisive passers. But yeah, Bailey especially, contributing both. And I think that testament to what I said at the start of the show was almost playing for his place.
Yeah, which is what we want. Defensive shape and out of possession and the sort of the average defensive action where they were. Anything that this told us about both teams' approach?
I think especially from Villa's perspective, we saw it in the last game. Remember I said that it's good to see wider midfielders backing up their fullbacks, and we're seeing that again here. And we're also seeing Tielemans dropping sort of just in front of Kamara. And we saw that. We saw them blocking off passing lanes, Tielemans and McGinn especially. And it was just more organised. And also, look at Bailey's defensive position there. We don't tend to see that a lot. So it's really good. And you've got Rog. So you've almost got 3 and 3 at the back, players backing up each other 10 or 15 yards in front of each other.
Yeah, he actually won some tackles as well, which was really good to see. But I was impressed with Garcia. I really thought he had a good game, and I just think there's a big difference. I know I put it in our group. You know, it's not Nedeljkovic's fault at all, but the difference in physicality between like Garcia at 21, 22 to Nedeljkovic at 18, 19, it's night and day, isn't it? And you can see why. You can see why now when you see Garcia, maybe why Emery was a little bit reluctant to play Nedeljkovic and maybe going out on loan in a maybe slightly less physical league or whatever you want to say. Give him some extra game time, get his physicality up over the summer, then come back.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Garcia, he was sort of very similar to Matty Cash, wasn't he, in the way that he played in the game? I thought there was a lot of similarities in the way that they played, and I can see that. That's a match, really good piece of recruitment to see that. Well, we like what we see in Matty Cash. Can we get someone else in that's similar to him, but that offers that little bit more of attacking threat? And I thought his passing was really good, Garcia, really calm on the ball, but did things the right way. Knew when to go forward, knew when to retreat. I think you didn't really notice him so much in the game, so that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and he could hit it with his left foot as well as his right, so that's pleasing to see as well. Last couple now, the goalkeepers, goalkeeping performance. Anything to sort of talk about on this? I know Kinski made probably a big error with the first goal from Ramsey, but he made some big saves as well.
He did, and that's why his goal was printed is 2.01 because he did. He made some fantastic saves. The goalkeeper, you can't deny that, but. The two that went in front of him, could he have got to him a bit better? Maybe, I don't know. But Martinez again beaten down to his left-hand side.
Made a big save as well, Martinez, didn't he, from Son? That was a great save. But yeah, I don't know. It was a nice placement for the goal, and I know I've criticised him for coming for crosses, but I don't think he could have come for that one for Tal's goal. I just think it was one of them where it was a decent finish, nice finish into the bottom corner, but. Yeah, it's just unfortunate because you want to keep a clean sheet, you want to kind of get that habits built in, but it wasn't to be. And then the final one, our running stats. Anything again to look at here? Anyone sort of catch your eye in terms of distance and distance covered, touches, and all that kind of stuff?
I just think the Tottenham. You can look at Pedro Porro, Kevin Danso, Archie Gray. And they're all having to do a lot of running there. And a lot of that might be forwards. We could say that. But it's really important that, that we had to make that defence work for Tottenham. And I think we did that. It's hard to distinguish where the running was done and everything else, but they're having to do a lot of work there.
Yeah. Rogers there, 9 kilometres. Yuri Tielemans, 14 as well for Villa, so covering a lot of ground. Luca Dean there, nearly 12 kilometres, which is really good, really high numbers. So John McGinn there with 11, so we'll keep a track on him. Is he getting back to some form of fitness as well? But yeah, like you say, Porro, Danso would certainly look like they were given the run around at times. So he drives a tough game, doesn't he? Of Ange Postecoglou. No wonder he gets a lot of injuries because certain players are doing a lot of miles.
Yeah, they're up and down, especially Spence and everything. It's all right for the young lads, but for the ones that are the late 20s and that. Maybe struggling a little bit with the way that they play, but they were given the run around positionally especially by Ramsey and Rogers, I felt.
Yeah. Well, really good performance and into the next round. Obviously back to Premier League action this Saturday and then quite a few home games, but focusing on the FA Cup, Cardiff in the next round, home game. You've got to be looking at it with some form of confidence because of the squad, because of even and now the likes of Marlon and Garcia aren't going to be playing in the Champions League. So you're thinking, well, they might be fresher for this competition as well. One or two other more fringe players maybe coming back, Barclays, and I'm not saying Onana's a fringe player, but Onana coming back in as well into fitness. So, dare we say it? Could we go, deep into the FA Cup and talk about quarterfinals, semi-finals? If the draw is kind to us.
Exactly that. You took words out of my mouth. I think if we should beat Cardiff, let's be honest, then surely get a half decent draw. Semi-finals we've got to be aiming for, haven't we?
Absolutely. Gareth, once again, fantastic stuff. Brilliant analysis. And we don't go through all of the slides either, but I think we'd be here all night with the work that Gareth puts in. But he will definitely post them on his social. So where can people go to find all that, Gareth?
Yeah, it'll all be posted on that One Villa analysis probably tomorrow morning now.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, mate. We'll be back with Premier League analysis after we play Ipswich on Saturday, hopefully reflecting on another 3 points because we need them to get back up into contention for that top 6 as well. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Hit that like button. We're literally 5 or 6 away from the big 5,300 on the road to 6K, ultimately aiming for 10K as well. So please do help us get there. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get your comments in, your thoughts on that performance and any questions you've got for Gareth as well. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we'll follow the Villa.